of our paradise, which many of the spiritual leaders promised us if we could shape our act up here. War after war is added to our soul's data banks and our DNA knowledge. So inwardly, we eventually learn that hurt and war are painful, and we know better inwardly to choose them. And through enough of this pain, we hopefully learn compassion and to reject such dominion actions. And inwardly, we eventually know what's right and what's wrong or unethical. And continually we must choose. The rulers constantly tempt us with money, power, and glory. We may be at a loss outwardly, but inwardly we know what is right and wrong. And all we need to do is either use and abuse our fellow humans for such dominion rewards, or reject such temptation and grant others freedom of action and choice. The choice is continually ours. Wars are a game that create choice situations on a grand scale. Whole masses of humanity get to see firsthand what it feels like to be used and abused. And after thousands of years, a short time of peace and freedom, followed by dominion-fostered wars, humanity should be understanding the futility of war and destruction and domination. But such is usually not the case. Mothers and fathers still allow their states and taskmasters to send their children to wars. And they support their states, no matter how corrupt and domination leaders may be. And after a state or government grows too oppressive, it automatically self-destructs. The civilizations that once were great lie in ruin. Well, you can see how this works by reading the great history books. The typical one that you should read is by Rousseau, the great German author, escaped Hitler. His monumental freedom and domination text showed how each oppressive system was doomed and how systems based on choice flourished until they were corrupted by the inaction and greed of their people. Rome and America both are very good examples of this. And today the U.S. freedoms are quickly disappearing. And if this continues, we too shall self-destruct. The law, which the Easterners call karma, brings retribution back on each action of domination that a person or country gives out deliberately. And this is an automatic law that's easy for anyone to observe. It's simple. One atom out of law in this universe would be a junk pile. And we humans who think we can force pain on others and break choice laws without tasting it back again ourselves are simply ignorant yet. Back to more experience in war, we must go to learn. Now, the proof of this is very easy, as we stated. Try to notice a country or a person who's practicing aggression and just see how fast they get it right back. Could be a pork chop hill in some Korea, or where it's captured and lost repeatedly, or it's just maybe an unethical cheating acquaintance who gets cheated right back by someone else within a few months. The action is there for you to see if you just look. And it's very simple and very effective. Well, to escape chaos and war, simply necessary to look at the systems you're caught up in, and the system you use in your daily life. If we so much as dirty a dish or cheat another person, we're acting in domination because we're forcing someone else to clean up our dishes or to make good our responsibilities. And if there are many persons like ourselves around, the systems that we're in will get corrupted and self-destruct. Think about it. If we become self-responsible, migrate to a place where there are others that are self-responsible, we'll be reasonably free of any chaos, as in the early country of the United States, where we had a constitution based on free choice. And since there are so few major groupings of such self-responsible people today, however, it's difficult. And the next best thing is to be self-responsible. Rely on our own inner soul knowledge to protect us. Because your soul is not a material assemblage. And it's not tied to any time or laws as we know it. And it can go to the future and determine what actions you take that will be beneficial or harmful, as the case may be. But only if you remain self-responsible and free of the need for more ethics lessons. And learning to know yourself and listen to your soul knowledge feedback is what the great spiritual leaders advocated. They advocated that it brought salvation. And this is a subject covered in other works that we produce. Flow line, we call it. Tapping into the soul flow line, which can bring amazing results and protect an individual from anything that can be directed against them. Well, the economies which are balanced by choice and freedom have long been more productive than those based on dominion and totalitarian states. And unfortunately, often these states are cranking out war material, but even then, they're productive. When the old dominion domination controls are lifted, most domination power structures suppress new technologies, which threaten profits until these wars come along. And Hitler's development of rockets and wonder drugs, jet planes, was made possible in a few short years simply because he gave his scientists free rein to develop new ideas with none of the usual restrictions. And he accomplished more in 5 years than the previous 100 years before him in the field of technology. Amazing. We still owe Hitler credit for much of present civilization. The most feared man in history. And some spiritual visionaries feel that such technology was necessary at this particular time in history. They feel that humanity must have a choice and ability to neutralize the coming pole shift and the natural planetary upheavals to come. And this technology is going to be the key. And here are some books that cover this subject. The phaser weapons that we have today will be able to dematerialize vast areas of the Antarctic ice which now threaten to unbalance the polar axis and create a devastating shift or flood. And many of these writers feel that Hitler himself is only a pawn in the higher scheme of things. And as fanciful as this may sound right now, we may give it some more serious thought as our axis continues shifting further out of balance, allowing the Gulf streams to shift and the devastating weather changes to occur. What you see here is the Pole Watchers newsletter, which is one of the newsletters which came out during the 80s. There were many other publications and books on the subject which almost never got public acceptance. Hugh Brown's Cataclysms of the Earth came out in the late 70s and was very difficult to obtain in the 80s, out of print. But John White put out his Pole Shift book, which was a brilliant look at the subject, from many views, from many authors' views, and it was available in the early 80s and mid-80s. Veliskowski came out in 1950 with Worlds in Collision, and oddly enough, this was a bestseller, but it showed that there was a planet which caused the floods, which was incorrect. But it was a great source of documentation as to the floods prior to the present. And there were many scientists who brought out their own small publications, like Emil Sepik here, The Imminent Shift of the Earth's Axis, which gave the author's opinions as to what caused the pole shift and when it was due. And many felt that in about 2004 it was due. And again, the soul's knowledge of this was an individual's protection, and those who could tap in would be free to be in the right areas at the right time and to escape destruction and chaos through self-knowledge. And at this point, let's look into some of the forces and temptations that we constantly confront. And as World War I provided huge profits for the internationalists and the munition makers, they slowly perfected methods of manipulation. Profits were enormous. Morgan banking cartels in the U.S. made to $30 million just acting as a buying agent between deals. Besides the U.S. steel firms like Bethlehem, the DuPont and other industries made huge profits in the war. But the European cartels made our own seem small by comparison. Before World War II, Vickers Armstrong of England and Schneider of France, Krupp of Germany, and Skoda of Czechoslovakia had a virtual monopoly on the munitions for the rest of the world. And they learned how to flare up fear in one country and play it against another nation in arms sales. America's steel corporations, for example, broke up disarmament conferences prior to the war, and Krupp and Skoda contributed fortunes to back Hitler and his policies. And others owned newspapers to spread war scares and help build up armaments. And Sir Basil Zakharov, whom you see here, represented some of the elite and was a master at this manipulating. He could manipulate one country against another, repeatedly did so, and in World War I, he'd sell submarines to one nation and leak the information so another frightened nation would buy them also. Today, of course, the game hasn't changed one little bit. We can all remember Korea, which provided billions for the profiteers. And they found that the communist versus the West scenario could sell billions in new, complex war materials. And to keep down production costs and to raise profits even further, the internationalists found ways in recent years to erode away union wage protection and even put our women to work in the West. During World War II, for example, the industrialists noted that women could work in factories and would do it for less wages. So, you can guess what happened. Here are women coming from one of the munition plants during World War II, courtesy of Winchester. What the internationalists and industrialists did, of course, was to encourage cheap imports and send their factories over